All right, let's dive into this Amazon's Q4 2024 earnings report. What looked like a big win at first glance has Wall Street, well, a little puzzled. And we're going to figure out why. We've got some excerpts from Amazon's own report, commentary from analysts, and even some global perspectives. We're breaking down what had people cheering, what made the market hesitate, and what it all means for Amazon's future.
It's really interesting to see this disconnect between how well Amazon did and how the market reacted. On paper, it's amazing. Record revenue at $187.8 billion, net income almost doubled to $20 billion, but then the stock drops 5% after hours.
After hours. Okay, for those of us who don't spend all day watching the stock market, what's that about?
Basically, it means investors weren't as excited as you'd expect, even with those great numbers. After hours trading, it happens when the regular market's close, so it often shows that immediate gut feeling about like a big news drop, an earnings report.
So it's like the instant reaction before anyone's really had time to process it all.
Yeah, exactly. And that gut reaction was to sell, which is pretty unusual when a company's posting record profits. There's definitely more to this story.
Okay, let's back up a bit. Amazon had a huge holiday quarter, right? That must have been a big part of those record numbers.
Oh, absolutely. The holiday season was key. Early promotions, their logistics, it all worked like a well-oiled machine. They met that huge demand without any issues.
So what happened? Why the market kind of went, after such a strong performance?
Well, remember, the market doesn't just care about what you did, it wants to know what you're going to do next. Amazon also put out their guidance for Q1 2025, and it wasn't as optimistic as some analysts hoped for. Projected revenue for the next quarter, lower than expected.
Is that all? It seems kind of small compared to the huge success this quarter.
Well, not quite. They also said there's going to be a big hit from foreign exchange fluctuations. The strong dollar is making those international sales look, well, less impressive when they convert it back.
Okay, so lower projected revenue and the strong dollar's eating into profits. Anything else making investors nervous?
Oh, yeah. Remember, 2024 was a leap year. That extra day, it actually boosted sales, something like $1.5 billion. Obviously not going to happen again in 2025, so analysts are taking that out of their predictions. And then there's the elephant in the room. Amazon Web Services, AWS.
Their cloud computing giant, the one that's been making a ton of money. What's going on there?
It's still growing, still making huge profits, but that growth rate, it's slowing down a bit. And in the world of high-growth tech, any slowdown can set off alarm bells.
So even though AWS is still a powerhouse in the cloud market, this little dip in growth has everyone wondering if they peaked or if the competition's catching up.
Exactly. You've got Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud, they're right there. And investors want to know if AWS can stay ahead. Remember, the tech world changes fast. Even giants can fall behind if they don't keep innovating.
Okay, so speaking of keeping ahead, let's look at some of those expert opinions we gathered. Sounds like there are some different views on what this all means for Amazon long term.
Definitely, yeah. Some analysts, they see this as a temporary thing. They're still optimistic about Amazon's future. They point to how dominant Amazon is in e-commerce, how AWS is still growing, and those massive investments they're making in cutting-edge stuff like AI and automation.
This sounds pretty good. Are there others who are, well, not so positive about Amazon's future?
Yeah, there are. Some analysts are being more cautious. They're concerned about that conservative guidance for the next quarter, the short-term challenges, and whether the current stock price is, well, maybe a little too high considering the potential for slower growth.
It's like we've got two different versions of Amazon here. The one that's totally killing it right now, and the one that's facing some tough questions about what comes next. It's kind of dizzying.
Yeah, it really shows how important it is to look past the headlines and really get into the details of how a company's doing. Those little things, like you said, currency exchange rates, those one-time events, they can make a big difference.
Yeah, I'm starting to get why those financial reports can be so intimidating. But what does it all mean for someone who's maybe thinking about investing in Amazon or just trying to understand how the business world works? What are the big takeaways?
I think this situation really shows how much power those future projections have over how the market feels. Even when a company is doing great right now, if there's a hint of caution about the future, investors can get spooked.
So it sounds like emotions actually play a bigger role in the stock market than I realized.
Oh, totally. Fear and greed, they drive a lot of the decisions, and that's what causes all that up and down, that volatility. That's why it's so important to, understand what those financial reports are really saying. Look beyond the big numbers, try to see the trends underneath.
So don't just jump on the bandwagon or freak out when there's a dip. Do your research and see the bigger picture.
Exactly. And speaking of the bigger picture, let's zoom out a bit and look at the whole cloud computing market. It's getting super competitive, and AWS, even though they're still on top, they're feeling the heat from Microsoft Azure and Google Cloud.
Sounds like a high-stakes game of chess. Everyone's trying to outsmart everyone else. What are some of the moves Amazon's making to stay in the lead?
One area where they're putting a ton of resources is artificial intelligence, AI. They're basically integrating it into everything they do, from figuring out the best delivery routes to personalizing those recommendations for customers and even making new AI tools for other businesses.
So those investments we talked about earlier, they're not just about staying ahead in the cloud, right? It's about changing how Amazon works, how it competes at its core.
Exactly. They're betting big that AI will give them a real edge in terms of efficiency, customer experience, just coming up with new ideas. And it's not just about saving money, it's about opening up entirely new possibilities.
It makes me think about when Amazon first launched Prime. Everyone thought offering free 2-day shipping was insane, but look at it now. It completely changed online shopping and became this huge source of revenue. Could these AI investments be like the next Prime?
It's definitely possible. But just like any big move, there are risks. AI is still relatively new, and it's hard to say how fast these investments will turn into actual profits. Plus, the competition's not sitting around. Microsoft and Google are pouring billions into AI, too.
So even with all of Amazon's resources, all that innovation, there's no guarantee they'll win this AI race.
Yeah, it just goes to show that even the biggest companies have to be flexible and willing to take some chances. They can't just rely on what worked in the past, especially in tech where things change so fast.
So huge potential, but a lot of uncertainty too. Now, I want to go back to those expert opinions for a minute. It sounds like there's no real agreement on what the future holds for Amazon. Some are hopeful, some are more cautious.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that even those experts, they don't have all the answers. They're looking at the data, making educated guesses about what might happen, and weighing the risks and rewards.
It's like trying to put together a puzzle when you're missing some pieces. You can see the general idea, but you're not totally sure how it all comes together.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to look at things from different angles, weigh the evidence, and come to your own conclusions.
Which is what makes these deep dives so useful. It's not about giving you all the answers. It's about giving you the knowledge and the tools to make your own smart decisions.
Speaking of smart decisions, let's switch gears for a bit and talk about Amazon's international expansion. It's a huge part of their plan for growth, but it also comes with its own set of challenges and risks.
Going global sounds exciting, but I bet it's not as easy as just setting up shop in a new country and watching the money roll in. We already talked about those currency fluctuations. What are some other hurdles Amazon's facing as it expands into new markets?
One of the biggest ones is dealing with different cultures and regulations. What works in one country might not work in another. They have to adapt their strategies, figure out what people want, and sometimes even build new infrastructure from scratch.
I can imagine it's a constant learning curve, figuring out how to win over customers all over the world.
Oh, definitely. And then you've got competition. In a lot of places, Amazon is going up against local companies that already know the customers really well.
So it's not just about being Amazon. It's about being the right kind of Amazon for each specific market. What are some examples of how they're changing their approach in these new areas?
Well, like in India, they teamed up with those small local shops, the Kirana stores, to use their existing networks and reach customers even in remote areas.
That's pretty clever. Using local knowledge and systems instead of trying to start from zero. Are there other examples of this localized approach?
Definitely. In Southeast Asia, they've invested a lot in mobile shopping experiences. They realize that a lot of people there mostly use their phones to get online.
So they're not just copying and pasting their American model. They're adapting and changing to fit each market.
Exactly. And that brings us back to that idea of risk and reward. Expanding internationally is a big gamble, but it also has the potential to open up huge new markets and drive serious growth.
It's like exploring new territory. There's the excitement of discovery, but also the danger of the unknown.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so interesting to watch. Will Amazon's global ambitions pay off? Can they be as successful all over the world?
Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, it's going to be an interesting ride. We've covered a lot in this deep dive, from record profits to stock drops, from cloud wars to going global.
We've seen the ups and downs of how Amazon's been doing, figured out why the market reacted the way it did, and dug into those long-term trends that are shaping the company's future.
So it's been quite a journey going through all of this.
Yeah.
But even with all the numbers, all the expert opinions, there's this bigger question hanging out there. Is Amazon just playing it safe, setting the bar kind of low? Or are they cooking up something huge, something they're not showing us yet?
Yeah, that's a good question to think about. Amazon, they have a history of making these bold moves that at first everyone's like, wait, what? But then they end up changing entire industries. Remember when they bought Whole Foods a few years
Oh,
ago?
yeah, it seemed so strange at the time, but now it's a core part of their grocery delivery business.
Exactly. It seemed like a weird fit, but it worked out. And those Prime Air delivery drones we talked about, people laughed, call it science fiction, but hey, now they're actually making deliveries in some places. So maybe this cautious approach, it's just like a strategy.
Maybe a little misdirection. Keep everyone guessing.
It wouldn't be the first time Amazon's pulled a surprise. They're always experimenting, innovating, pushing the limits. And don't forget all those investments they're making in AI, machine learning, even space exploration with Blue Origin.
Right. Those things might not be bringing in tons of money right now, but they could be the foundation for something revolutionary down the line.
Like they're planting seeds for a whole new forest we can't even picture yet. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the key takeaways for our listeners? What should they remember?
What should they walk away with?
I think the biggest thing is the business world, especially tech, it's constantly in motion. Companies like Amazon, they're leading the charge. And to really understand them, you got to look beyond just the reports and the stock prices.
It's about getting their long-term vision, seeing how they're willing to take risks, how they never stop trying to innovate.
Exactly. And that's what makes Amazon so interesting to follow. They're not afraid to shake things up, challenge the way things have always been done. They make us think about what the future could be, how tech's going to keep changing our lives.
It reminds us that we're living in a time of crazy change, crazy opportunity, and companies like Amazon are writing the rules as they go. So, as we sign off, we want to leave you with a final thought. If you were running Amazon, what would your next move be?
Would you focus on AWS, go all in on global expansion, or try something totally different? No easy answers there, but it's a good question to ask as we think about where Amazon's headed, how it'll keep impacting the world.
And hey, maybe one of our listeners has that next billion-dollar idea, the one that'll take Amazon to a whole new level. So keep those ideas coming and keep exploring this amazing world of business and technology. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries.